We begin with memory, a non-specific dimension of the afterlife, where information and memories are stored. It is also where we meet our two main characters, Abraham Lincoln and Harriet Tubman. Abraham Lincoln, who was the 16th President of the United States of America, who helped abolish slavery with the Emancipation Proclamation and changed the course of history for America, and was one of the first U.S. presidents, unfortunately, to be assassinated. And Harriet Tubman, an African-American abolitionist who was the most well-known conductor of the Underground Railroad. She helped herself and her family escape to freedom in the North. In memory, they talk about their lives, ambitions, and beliefs, and realize that although they came from different backgrounds, that they are more similar than they thought. Their conversation will be a story that represents unity, compassion, and peace to this world.
All right, ladies, take it from the top. Remember, dance is not just about dance. It's about finding your power as women. So 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha. 1, 2, cha-cha-cha. And spin and find your power. Thank you so much, ladies. I'll see you next Tuesday. Oh, excuse me? Who are you?
I could ask the same question about you.
Wait, I know you. Do you know me?
I don't know.
Maybe this will help you remember.
Ah, now I remember you. You were a friend of Sojourner Truth. Is your name, by any chance, Harriet Tubman?
Yes, that's my name. I'm wondering, did we ever meet in life?
No, I can't say we have.
Well, how about we sit over here and talk?
All right, sure. Well, although we did not know each other, I do know that we both had the same values of being against slavery. I would love to know your story and how you became an abolitionist.
Yes, let me tell you my story and how I became an abolitionist. I was born on March 6, 1822, in Dorchester County, Maryland, as a woman of color. Being a woman of color never stopped me from doing what I believed was right. Being a woman of color that was enslaved was my power. It is what drove me to do what was needed for my people. I knew that I was meant to free my people from an early age. As a child, I had to see my loved ones get beaten daily for no reason or talked to like they were their own property just because of the color of their skin. Can you imagine the anger and resentment I felt as a kid watching my family get beat all the time? It was a traumatic and frightful to watch, but as I matured, I developed the guts to handle these situations. At age 12, I had the fire in me to intervene between a slaveholder and a slave who was getting beaten. And my punishment was getting struck by an iron weight on my head that impaired me for life. Due to this injury, I had narcolepsy, which is a complicated sleep disorder, and I developed deep visions that happened very often.
Oh my. What was the nature, or rather severity, of your injury?
It was not so severe, as I could still function. Honestly, I used my injury as a superpower. These visions guided me through my journey to free slaves. I saw that God was with me, and I was able to talk to him when I needed guidance. I also was able to see whenever danger was coming. When the white men were coming after me, I could see danger from miles away. My visions helped me have the strength and motivation to make 14 trips, coming back and forth from the north and south, freeing 70 slaves from 1849 to 1860. And in 1862, I even had the guts to serve in the Union Army during the Civil War, where I was a spy, nurse, cook, and scout. During my service, I traveled up the Compahnee River and was able to free 700 slaves. I was just unstoppable, powerful woman. No matter what people thought, I just kept doing me.
Well, little fun fact about myself. I myself served in the military as a soldier in the Illinois militia during the Black Hawk War. I guess you could say we both had military experiences. What would you say is your greatest achievement?
I would have to say that one of my greatest and most significant achievements was working with the Underground Railroad in 1849 after I was freed, where I helped 300 runaway slaves get their freedom like I had in the North. I was one of the most famous people known for freeing slaves. I don't think that there was a single slave that was put into my hands that was not freed. That is why you can also call me Moses, as I was given this name due to my devotion and hard work of freeing so many slaves. I never ran my train off the track, and I never lost a passenger.
That's really amazing. May I ask, were there any people that wanted to hunt you?
There were many wanted posters of myself, and the reward to capture me was $12,000. But this scary idea of people constantly looking for me did not stop me from freeing my people. I have heard their groans and sighs, and I would give them every drop of my blood in my veins, in my soul, that I would disguise myself as a man by speaking in a lower voice and wearing masculine clothes. I would also walk hunched over, so I thought that people would think I'm older than I was. And since people thought that I could not read, I would pretend to read a newspaper if I saw a suspicious person nearby. I would memorize the area and people who lived around me, so that if someone asked me, what was I doing here? I would make up an excuse that I am working for that person. And even when I was in the army, I taught others how to fake an identity and mingle with the enemy to get needed information. I had the drive in me to teach others in the army how to be scouts and spies. Yes, it was absolutely dangerous, but I was confident that I had the skills to do this daunting task. I also taught myself that I felt that I was being followed. I would just turn my horse around and head north.
Very interesting. What did you do after freeing your people?
After years of work freeing my people, I settled down in Auburn, New York in 1858, where I decided to take part in the women's suffrage movement. I empowered women by telling my story, and that if I can be a successful woman in a war, cross borders from Canada and neighboring states in America, then there is no way that a woman can't do anything the way I did. I also provided a home to many in need, orphans, elders, and poor African Americans. I felt the need to take part in humanitarian duties and better the community around me.
I really admire all your achievements despite the pain you must have endured. What would you say was the biggest pain that you felt during that journey?
Pain. Well, I would say that although my journey was rewarding and fulfilled my needs of freedom, help, and community and passion, I had to go through one of the most painful, backstabbing feelings that my heart ever endured. When I returned home in 1851, after getting my freedom in Philadelphia, I found out that my husband, John Tubman, married someone else. After I got my freedom, I thought that I would have the chance to live more in peace with my husband. But that dream was crushed in milliseconds once I found out. I was absolutely hysterical. I thought we would have the rest of our lives together in peace. I screamed and I cried so loudly because he shattered my soul. However, I picked myself up back immediately, as I was confident that I did not deserve a man who was going to move on like that. I did not beg for him or pray that he would come back. I knew that I had to continue to get my family and myself and others freedom. This pain would not stop me, just like my childhood injuries. Many people have asked me over the years how I had the courage and physicality to achieve such goals. I told them it was because maybe people did not understand that women and people of color are created equal and have the capacity to do the impossible, like white men. But I knew deep inside that everyone, regardless of color and gender, are equal. I practiced self-compassion during my journey, reminding myself that I can do anything that I put my mind to, and that I am a child of God.
Oh my, that's a very powerful story. Thank you for taking the time to share it with me. Would you mind if I shared my story with you?
Thank you for listening. No, you can tell me about your life. It's your turn after all.
Okay, well, I'll start at the beginning. I was born on February 12th, 1809, in a log cabin, really a log cabin, in Sinking Spring Farm, Kentucky. When I was 7 years old, me and my family moved to Indiana. In the end, I grew to be 6 foot 4 inches tall, which may be the tallest U.S. president in history.
Wow, I wish I could relate to that height.
Yeah, it was a lovely childhood, but as I was growing up, however, there was slavery in both the northern and southern United States. Eventually, I became a senator for the Republican Party in the U.S. government. I grew opposed to slavery in the years leading up to the Civil War. During my presidency, however, there was a growing problem in the United States of America. 11 of the states in the South wanted to secede or divide themselves from the North and form their own nation in which slavery continued to be legal. They called it the Confederate States of America. Yes, I, of course, being the president of the country, never wanted a divided America, because I remember saying, and I quote, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Thus began the American Civil War from April 1861 to May 1865. The war was long, brutal, and devastating for our country, as many civilians and soldiers died, and there were even heinous war crimes committed during the war.
I get how you feel. It was horrible for me to witness all the war crimes as well when I was a general.
Yes, in any war, there are war crimes. But this civil war, however, took it to the next level. One of these that I learned about was a dreadful place down in Andersonville, Georgia. They called it Camp Sumter, also known as Andersonville Prison. It was the worst prisoner of war camp during the war. Almost a third of the Union soldiers there were killed by the Confederates that guarded the prison. Luckily, justice for the prisoners caught up to the main commander of the camp, Henry Wirz, and he was hanged and executed for the crimes he committed. After I was informed of these despicable acts, I knew that I needed to accelerate the process of abolition for the slaves. After the war ended, the South had to make reparations for the damage caused by the war. Little did I know that it would cost me my life because I angered many Southerners. This included one particular man, someone named John Wilkes Booth. He not only hated me, particularly because of their loss in the war, but for the emancipation of the slaves and the reunification of the North and South.
It hurts when someone hates us, but you did the right thing. So many people hated me as well. I kept running away and freeing slaveholder slaves, so I get it. I am proud of you. Coming from your background, it must have not been easy to change your values like that.
Yes, despite all of this, I felt that I wanted to do more than what I had already accomplished, but I couldn't because of my position in power as the president. Even when I was president, I felt a sense of being a slave to my own body, mind, and soul. I may not have been enslaved nor witnessed it firsthand like you have, but I felt this sense during my presidency.
Aw, well, it's interesting to hear more about how you felt like you were a slave in your own way. I'm glad you can kind of relate to me.
Yes, I guess we can. I remember the last day of my life clearly. It was April 14th, 1865, not even a week after the end of the war. I went to see a production of a play called Our American Cousin at a newly opened theater called Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. I went with my wife, First Lady Mary Todd, and even other members of the cabinet and my administration. Oh, the joy I had of seeing that play. The comedy of that play, which even made me laugh a lot. I was completely oblivious to the fact that that Booth had entered the theater and was coming for me. The last thing I can recall is me, my wife, and everyone roaring into laughter. And then, everything went black. Before I knew it, I ended up here, in memory, the dimension of the afterlife, as I've learned. I was first shown the events that occurred immediately after I was shot by Booth. I saw him leap from the box onto the stage and hear him yell, "Sic semper tyrannis," to the audience, then watched him run backstage. Escaping from the theater, I could feel and hear the audience's shock and panic as everything happened so fast through their perspectives. But then, I was shown future events that happened long after I was assassinated, such as the desegregation of the U.S. military after World War II, the civil rights movement that occurred a century after my death in the 1960s, and even how an African American named Barack Obama became the President of the United States. I like how progress has been made for our country and for the world since my assassination. I'm also happy to know that I'll be remembered forever as the president who helped make our country the bulwark of equality, freedom, and liberty. Although I felt like I hadn't done enough, so if I did more, then I would be more of a contribution to the end of slavery. I remember I was aggressive in terms of the generals I elected, like Ulysses S. Grant, who would come after my successor, Andrew Johnson, as the U.S. president. I hoped that in electing great strategists, we would end slavery and war crimes that were happening to our dear soldiers much faster.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience with me. I know it must have not been easy for you to be anti-slavery, but it means a lot that you stood your ground and you kept your values no matter what people thought. That is what we have in common with each other.
And thank you for telling me your side of the war. It was important for me to hear this to gain an even deeper understanding of the brutality of slavery. I agree with you that we can represent to others that there can be unity and peace regardless of what race you are when you come together to fight for a cause.
I'm glad we talked and that you learned from me. And now I ask that you continue to learn more and hear more about myself to gain better knowledge. I implore you to please help me spread awareness of my role as a woman in history who stepped outside the circumscribed boundaries of womanhood. It's important for others to learn from me as I took great risks, like dressing like a man to achieve my goals.
Yes, I will make sure to do that. And I also ask you a favor, that you and I work together to educate others about how people of all backgrounds can work effectively together when there is compassion and understanding. We can make speeches and programs, any of the sorts, to help spread this message. Thank you.